A good demonstration is a good communication. A pleasant day to each and everyone. Our topic for today is all about how to give an effective teaching demonstration. This is Aljan Sangwensa, your future educator. As a future educator, we may think that why is it important for a teacher to give an effective teaching demonstration to their students? Well, to answer that, it is because it provides students with experiences of real events, phenomena, and processes, helping them learn, raise students' interest, motivation, and active participation. However, for the teacher, it's not easy to give a demonstration of the lesson, and it can be intimidating. In fact, your performance during a demonstration class can determine whether you can win or lose the job. That's why, as a future educator, we must know this importance, especially on how we can effectively prepare for the lesson. So, I and my teams are here to provide you the 4 things and 8 indicators on how to give an effective teaching demonstration. First thing to do is to organize and deliver a purposeful lesson. Teachers are under a lot of pressure to be accountable because of standardized testing and criteria for teaching to specified standards. There never seems to be sufficient time in a school day to do everything that needs to be done. That's why, in order to be effective in their teaching, they must be well prepared, well organized, and purposeful. First indicator is teachers needs to convey a strong sense of purpose and knows the lesson well. First tips for making it happen is to practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect, and it produces progress. After a long period of practicing, our work will become more natural, skillful, swift, and steady. Second tip is that teachers need to provide a copy of their formal lesson plan to all evaluators. This is important because this will become a guide for all the evaluators if the teachers are effectively demonstrating the lesson written in their lesson plan. Third tip is that make sure you are clear about the objectives of the lesson. Goal displacement is a common occurrence when there are no clearly defined goals and accompanying objectives. That's why in the classroom, start by stating the lesson's purpose so that students knows exactly what to expect. Fourth tip is that choose a lesson subject that you know inside and out. This will help you to have knowledge of a broad concept in your field, as well as a variety of stories about your specialized area that will help you give a better explanation. The last tip in this first indicator is that don't load up on creative strategies or tools such as technologies that don't add up to the purpose of the lesson. This is important to know because putting unnecessary things or strategies that are not connected to the lesson will end up students' confusion. Remember, the impact of preparation and planning is tremendous not only to the teacher's performance but also on the student's learning. The next 2 indicators will be reported by Ms. Arj Samporna.
Good day everyone, I am Ms. Arj Samporna and I will continue the lesson that Ms. Aljem Sangwensa discussed a while ago. So, let's start. So, the second indicator is sequences planned learning experiences with a time above. Creating a sequential lesson plan will showcase you as a future teacher's ability to anticipate the needs of the students. This sequence enables students to have a deep understanding of the content taught. Tips for making it happen. Number 1. Have a clear beginning, middle, and end to your lesson. Focusing on what you want your students to learn today and create a goal and objectives. Then, you can structure a lesson following a format that gradually releases responsibility to your students. And last, assign a task that you can use to assess your students' skills and understanding. Second, in preparing, give yourself a rough time frame for each part of the lesson. Planning lessons ahead of time means teachers enter the classroom each day fully prepared to teach new concepts and lead meaningful discussion. Without lesson plan, students can quickly lose focus and teachers may be left confused and thinking what to do next. And number 3, although you need to plan the sequencing and flow of the lesson, be flexible. Remember, don't rush to a new part of the lesson if the students aren't ready. A good plan considers how much time the class needs to spend on each learning activity and how those activities are spread out. And don't linger on another part if students have a good grasp of the material. Don't take too long in discussing if the student already understood the lesson, so that we can avoid confusion. So, the third indicator is delivers an engaging lesson that motivates students to learn. Students who are motivated to learn persist longer, produce higher quality effort, learn more deeply, and perform better in classes. Tips for making it happen. Number 1. Use interactive teaching strategies such as cooperative learning to engage all learners simultaneously. One common strategy that teachers are using is called pair share. This can be easily adapted into most classrooms by asking students to collaborate with an elbow partner or person close by. Students can discuss a question or topic and then share with the whole class. Number 2. Provide students with many opportunities to interact, both with you and each other. In order to create a structured learning environment that encourages positive social interactions among all students, you must incorporate a few teaching strategies into your daily routine, such as implementing classroom jobs, carving out time students to just interact and play. Number 3. Model concept and instruction. The model, or what we call visual aid, helps students to understand and learn concepts by identifying attributes or key features through a process of analysis, comparison, and contrast of example. And number 4. Delivers positive feedback that is specific and genuine. Constructive feedback helps students learn from their mistakes, while positive feedbacks build their confidence and improves their positive self-talk, and it helps students become self-regulated learners. So the next topic is respond to all learners that will be reported by Miss Vianica Oganap and Miss Natalie Zuniega.
Hello to each and everyone. I am Natalie Sam Zuniga, and I am going to discuss to you what are the things that you must do during your teaching demonstration or literally having your classes. Second is to respond to all learners. Effective teachers recognize the wide range of needs among diverse learners in the classroom. They use knowledge of how their students learn along with their students' individual interests, strengths, challenges, language, cultural backgrounds, and developmental needs to mold their lesson. In addition, effective teachers collaborate with other school personnel in teaching students with special needs. Our first indicator is connects with all students in the classroom, and this is the tip for making it happen. Begin the lesson by getting to know the learners, building rapport, and pre-assessing. And I have searched on the web on how you can make rapport together with your students, and this is from Bastiste and Saville in 2001. First is to learn to call your students by their name. Reward students' comments and questions with verbal praises. Be enthusiastic about teaching and be passionate about your subject matter. Lighten up and just crack a joke every now and then. And lastly, make eye contact with each student without staring, glaring, or flaring. This indicator is just ensuring that your students will be comfortable during the whole class and to the teacher. Second indicator will be differentiates instruction to engage all learners. And these are the tips for making it happen. Incorporate a variety of teaching techniques into your lesson to ensure you'll address all learning style. And this is true. We have all different learning styles that may be hard for us to portray the information to our students. So as much as possible, we may able to mix all different teaching strategies to ensure that the students will absorb all the information during the class. And lastly, anticipate the cultural differences in your class and weave in cultural connections in your lesson. So at this juncture, you are going to be sensitive enough to all of your students since we all have different religions, cultures, backgrounds, and such. And this is just making sure that you are not going to embarrass them or making fun of what they are as a person because of their background. So you have to incorporate as well or give examples that may able to praise what they are and praise their backgrounds. And I am going to call on Miss Bianica Oganap to continue this part of the lesson. Once again, I am Nathalie Sam Zuniga. I hope you got something.
Hello everyone, I am Ma'am Bianica Macy Uganap, or you can call me Ma'am Bian, a student teacher taking a Bachelor of Elementary Education at University of Mindanao. And now, let me ask you a question. How are you today? Okay, I am very happy to hear that. And now, let's proceed to our lesson. So lesson 6 discusses about how to give an effective teaching demonstration. So in order to give an effective teaching demonstration, we must respond to all learners. So in continuation to Miss Nathalie's discussion, how can we respond to all learners? So we have these teaching techniques for making it happen. So we have these first two techniques, which are, the first one is connect with all students in the classroom, and the second one is differentiates instructions to engage all learners, which are explained earlier. So now, let's proceed to technique number 3, so which is assesses student learning. Defining assessment. So what exactly do we mean when we talk about assessment? So at the course level, assessment provides an important data on the breadth and depth of the student's learning. So assessment is more than grading. It's about measuring the progress of students' learning. Thus, assessment defined as process of gathering data to better understand the strengths and weaknesses of the student's learning. So assessment then becomes a lens for understanding students' learning, identifying the invisible barriers, and helping us to improve our teaching approaches. In assessing students' learning, we have these 3 tips for making it happen. So the first one is check in with students regularly to make sure that they are grasping the content. So most teacher really cares about the results of the students' performance, and even they make sure that the students really grasp the content. So research shows that evidence-based teaching strategies are likely to have the largest impact on students' results. So now I am going to give you 10 teaching strategies to make sure that the students really grasp the content. So the first one is clear lesson goals or present objectives. So it is crucial you are clear about what you want your students to learn during each lesson. So clear lesson goals help you and even your students to focus every other aspects of your lesson on what matters most. So of course, as a teacher, you must present the objectives and even the clear lesson goals so that the students will know the flow of each lessons. The second one is show and tell. So once you are clear about what you want your students to know and be able to do by the end of the lesson, so you need to tell them what they need to know and show how to do the test you want them to be able to do. So you need to show and tell them what are the things that they need to learn about the specific lesson. Number 3, ask questions to check their understanding. So techniques such as student answer boards and tell a friend help you to check for understanding before moving on from the show and tell part of your lesson. And while you can use other question techniques in different stages of your lesson. So while you are teaching, you can ask your students so that you will ensure if they're still listening or they're still grasping the content. The fourth one is summarize new learning in a graphical way. So graphic outlines include things such as mind maps, flowcharts, and even Venn diagrams. So that discussing a graphical summary is a fantastic way to finish off your show and tell. So you can then refer it in one more time at the end of your lesson. So summarize the new learning in a graphical way. So the fifth one is practice, plenty of practice. So practice helps students to retain the knowledge and skills that they have learned while also allowing you to another opportunity to check for understanding. So of course, practice makes perfect. So as a teacher, you need to let your student to have a plenty of practice. So the sixth one is provide your students with feedback. So unlike praise, which focuses on the students rather than the task, feedback provides your students with a tangible understanding of what they did well. So of where they are at and how they can improve. So as a teacher, you need to provide feedback to your students so that they will know where is the aspect they need to improve, and of course they will know which part they already know the topic. And the seventh one is be flexible about how long it takes to learn. So when you adopt mastery learning, so you differentiate in a different way. So you keep your learning goals the same, but vary the time you give each child to succeed. So within the constraints of a crowded curriculum, this may be easier said than done. So however, we can all do it in some degree. So as a teacher, you need to know the different capabilities of your students. Not all have the same abilities. So you need to understand the other one is slow learner and the other one is fast learner. So you need to understand different aspects of what the students have, and don't generalize all your students that they learn the task in a fast way. So the eighth one is get students working together. So group work is not new, but productive group work is rare. So to increase the productivity of your groups, you need to be selective about the task that you assign to them, and then individual role that each group member plays. So you should only ask groups to do the tasks that all group members can do successfully. So the ninth one is teach strategies, not just the content. So teach strategies, not just the contents. So from assignments and studying to characterization, there are strategies underpinning the effective execution of many tasks, so that you ask students to perform in school. So, and just as with the content, you need to tell students about these strategies to show them how to use them, and to give them guided practice before asking them to use them independently. So when you give a specific strategies to your students, you need not just to say it to them. You need to teach them how to use that kind of strategies. So the 10th one, nurture metacognition. So when you say metacognition, it involves thinking about your options, your choices, and your results, and it has an even larger effect on students' results than teaching strategies. So when using metacognition, your students may think about what strategies they could use before choosing one, and they may think about how effective their choices was, and after reflecting on their success or lack thereof, so before continuing with or changing their chosen strategy. So of course, when a student try to think about what strategy they will use, of course it will nurture their thinking capabilities, or how to think critically, so that it is important as a teacher to nurture their metacognition. So of course, when you tell your students, okay, can you share about what strategy you will use at this specific task? So of course, the student will think critically about what strategies they will use. Now let's proceed to the second tip, so which is, if some students are having difficulty, determine whether you might reach these students using another technique. So not all students have the same learning capabilities, so they have different capabilities. So it's teacher responsibility to apply different learning style, just to make sure that the students' learning needs are being met. So for example, one of your students have difficulty in a certain topic. Instead of explaining him or her again and again the topic, so why not you can apply another technique that suits to him and make sure that he fully understands the topic. So of course, now teacher it's one of her responsibility or his responsibility to apply different technique, so that the students will learn about a specific lesson. So for example, not all the students have the different capabilities, so we will not generalize all students. So for example, this kind of students, he have the difficulty in reading, so of course we need to apply different teaching techniques, so that he will learn fast, or technique that will suit to him. And the third tip is, bring the lesson to a close by allowing students to self-assess and or summarize their learning. So to make sure that the students fully understand the lessons well, you can allow them to have a self-assessment or self-reflection. So when we say self-assessment, student self-assessment occurs when learners assess their own performance. So with practice, they learn to, first one is objectively reflect on, critically, and evaluate their own progress and skill development. And the second one is identify gaps in their understanding and capabilities. And the third one is discern how to improve their performance. And the fourth one is learn independently and critically. Use self-assessment to develop the learning skills of students will need for professional competence. So, and to make them aware of and more responsible for their own learning process. So like what I've said earlier, it's the teacher really care about the results of the students' performance. So in order to know the results, or to know if the students really grasp the content, we need to assess them. So we will give self-assessment to the students or self-reflection. For example, we can give a quiz, different activities, so that we will ensure if the students really understand fully from our topic that present to them, and of course, if they met the given objectives or learning goals. So okay, that's all. I hope you learned a lot from my topic today. or today's topic, so let's proceed to the next discussion. Bye!
Good day everyone, I am Anilo J. Baliser, and the next topic that I'm going to discuss is all about manage the class. We all know that teachers should handle and manage the class in order to teach and increase meaningful academic learning towards the student. And having a classroom management is very important because it defines your student ability to learn and understand. We can include also our ability to teach as a teachers. And one more thing is having an effective classroom management can decrease negative behaviors of the student, just like not paying attention during class hours or class discussion. And one of the examples for this are talking to her or his seatmate. We can include also sleeping, eating foods, and etc. So that is why classroom management is very important because it can help students to participate and pay attention during class. We can include also learn new things and ideas from the class. Hence, it can help also the teacher to teach and deliver the topics properly without having a hassle. Anyways, here are some tips on how to manage the class. So first, making notes in your lesson plan about when working with small groups. Since we created a lesson plan, we should follow the guidelines that we prepared, and that's the time when we should engage the small groups in order to prevent misunderstanding and confusions in the classroom. Anyways, the importance of small groups, it teaches students when to perform work on their own. And small groups also teach students when it is proper to seek the assistance and knowledge of the others. One of the benefits of small groups is it can make students learn how to cooperate with others in order to complete the assigned group tasks. So let's move on to the next tips on how to manage the class. So we have form small groups at the start of the lesson so you can easily move from whole class instruction to small interactions. And we all know that we encounter this kind of situation, just like when we are in senior high school or even junior high school. Our teacher will call all the group leaders to give certain instructions, and the group leaders will inform his or her group mates about the instructions that given by the teacher. By doing this kind of matter, it can define if the group leaders are attentive and responsible to his or her group mates. One more thing is, it can help also the teacher to less the hassle on handling the class. So that is why forming a small groups at the start of the lesson has a big impact because it can easily give the instructions to the student. So next tip is remind student of the ground rules that you established at the beginning. Perhaps teachers want to keep his or her students safe and teach them what should do and what it is not an appropriate behaviors in the classroom. Classroom rules also are set to teach students a proper and safe way to act within the classroom. So let's move on to the another tips. So we have, in order to foster and rapport to students, if we say foster, it is encourage or promote. So in order to foster the students, address individual students by name when providing feedback and make the feedback specific to those actions of the student. And by doing this kind of matter, it defines if your student really understand and pay attention to the topics that have been discussed during the class.
Hello everyone, my name is Joseph Philip Alrias, and I'm going to continue discussing the fourth topic on how to give an effective demonstration. So the fourth one will be reflect and make adjustments in the moment of teaching. Effective teachers work from a well-conceived plan of action. However, during instructions, they should monitor their students' learning and make changes to their lesson plans as needed. In other words, while you're teaching in the classroom and you notice some students are sleepy, bored, or not listening, and this will result in the students will not catch the lesson. You must know what to do as a teacher. You must improvise and catch the attention of your students for them to learn. Since all of us experience this kind of situation as a college student, while we are listening to our professors or teachers, sometimes we are getting bored and we're not paying attention to our educators. This can give our idea and tips on what to do or change for your lesson plan. if you are teaching in the near future. For our first indicator, uses results of formative assessment to make instructional decisions. By the words formative assessments, it helps teachers identify the current state of learners' knowledge and skills. While the meaning of the instructional decision, it is to make changes in instructions so that the students meet with success. So there are tips for making this happen, which are frequently ask students questions to assess their understanding, change directions if students are not grasping a concept, reteach if it's clear that the students are confused or need more information. For our second indicator, it is flexible yet maintains a focus on the purpose of learning. This means you can do any type of teaching for the student to grab the attention while the students understands the lesson clearly. But always keep in mind your goal as a future educator. Be innovative but focus on the purpose of your learning. Tips for making this happen: in preparing for your lesson, consider other ways to present the material if students aren't grasping the concept. For example, you could present your ideas in graphs, drawing, graphic organizers, videos, and many more. You can be creative as much as you want. If you need to change direction during your demonstration, make sure you keep the overarching goal of the lesson in mind. Don't go off tangents that take you away from the purpose of your lesson. So in other words, do various ways on your demonstration, but always remember the purpose of your lesson. Avoid other topics that take you away from the purpose of your lesson. So lastly, use your gut. Every lesson is different, and there are no set prescriptions for how to react to the unexpected in the classroom. Don't be afraid to follow your instincts. So that's it for me. Miss Herling will continue discussing my report. Thanks for listening. See ya.
Hello everyone, I am Herlin Joy Astrowalan, or you can call me Teacher Herlin. I am from the Bachelor of Elementary Education and the last reporter of Group 6. So for today, I will discuss to you the do's and don'ts when doing a teaching demonstration. So without further ado, let's go! The first do and doing a teaching demonstration is to interact with students and encourage them to interact with you. As a future educator, we should interact with our students so that they won't be shy to ask their questions, suggestions, and concern to the lesson. This will help you to have a good relationship with your students. Next is model instructions or concepts. It is all about making a model instruction that can help your students to learn the lesson more effectively. Just like, for example, the I do, we do, you do model, which involve teachers in the following a series of steps, starting with the teachers, leading the instruction, and finishing it with the students working independently. So starting with the first stage, which is the I do stage. In this stage, teachers tell the students about what they need to know and show them how to do the things they need to be able to do. Then, teachers should check for understanding before moving on the next stage. The next stage is the we do stage, which teachers scaffold tasks and guide students as they work with the material you have taught them. Teachers should also offer incidental feedback and gauge students' readiness to move to the next stage. The last stage is the you do stage, where your students will complete the task similar to what we have covered earlier. Afterwards, you gave them feedback on their independent work. So once students are done to you do stage, they can do it again and again so that the students will remember the lesson effectively. With that, students will feel less anxious due to the peer modeling and the scaffolded opportunities to practice. This same factor can help students to experience independent success, which in turn builds their self-efficacy. Next is establish rapport with students. Rapport doesn't result in learning, but it certainly helps to create conditions conducive to learning things like higher motivation, increased comfort, and enhanced communication. Teaching doesn't always result in learning either, but Like rapport, it is one of those factors that can contribute positively to learning. There are 5 factors in building rapport. First, respect. Second, approachability. Third, open communication. Fourth, caring. 5, positive attitude. The first one is respect. Teachers and students must show respect for each other for the learning process and for the institution where it is occurring. Next is approachability. Students have to feel comfortable coming to faculty. Teachers must be willing to speak with students after class, during office hours, and via email on campus. Third is open communication. Faculty must be honest. There needs to be consistency between the faculty saying and what we do. Fourth, caring. Faculty must care about students. They must see and respond to them as individuals. They also need to care about learning and show that they want students to learn the material. And lastly, positive attitude. Faculty should have a sense of humor and be open to points of view other than their own. Rapport is not something developed by announcement. Rapport is developed by actions. It results from things teachers do. Next is, keep in mind the overarching purpose of your lesson. As a future educators, we should set a purpose for our every lesson. And one of those purposes is for them to learn and understand every lesson that we taught them. We should also teach them seriously by asking them questions, by giving them performance or quizzes after the lesson, so that they will listen and will participate actively in the class. Next is, do as a student's understanding as you go out their instruction as needed. As you know, every student needed help in learning the things that they are curious about. So before giving them the next lesson, we should assess them first by giving quizzes, essay, oral recitation, written test, and exams after the lesson, so that we can know if they understand the lesson and also to know if they are ready to the next lesson. After giving them an assessment, we can adjust the lesson to the student's level and make it more productive by giving them performance, be it by group or individual, so that they will understand the lesson more effectively. Next is, to prepare your lesson well ahead of time and practice. One critical component of effective teaching is preparation and planning. If the teacher lags behind in preparing, then it will lead to failure. Good teachers are always over-prepared, always thinking about the next lesson, and are in a continuous state of preparation and planning. As we all know, nobody is perfect. So by practicing, this can help us to remember the lesson and the important details, which is a big help when we teach our students. And lastly, do recognize the diverse needs of students. As your students enter the classroom, they bring with them a unique background, set of skills, and educational needs. Diversity in the classroom does not just refer to cultural diversity, but also refers to diversity in skills, knowledge, and needs. It is important to understand these attributes in order to effectively teach your students. The most important thing you can do to help educate your student is to learn as much about them as possible. You can achieve this in a wide variety of ways, either by spending time talking to students, giving them questionnaires to fill out, or engaging them in activities that reveal information about them. By using all these methods, this can help you give a clear picture of what each student needs and how they can learn best. For example, talking to students can give you a clear picture of their verbal skills and personality. A questionnaire can target specific information about the students and help you learn about their interests and passions. Different icebreaker activities can allow you to observe students socializing so you can learn how they act in groups. Another key component for learning about your students is communicating with parents and families. This will give you a background information such as their cultural identity or personal history. Knowing about your students' cultural backgrounds, for example, can give you and help you create a more culturally sensitive classroom environment so every student feels welcome and safe. So now, we will move on to the don'ts when doing a teaching demonstration. The first don't when doing a teaching demonstration is don't assume that everything will go as planned. Just like, for example, you plan on giving your student a group activity after discussing the lesson. However, most of your students disagree with group activity for a reason that some of their classmates depend on them and they don't like their classmates to depend on them, so that they come up and suggest that they will do the activity individually so that they can work on their own understanding of the lesson. That's why we should not assume that everything will go as planned, but we can only prepare for that. Next is, don't incorporate lots of bells and whistles that don't contribute to the effectiveness of the lesson. This means that we should not put or add too much declarative that are not necessary or important for the lesson. Rather than adding decoratives, we should keep it simple and easy to understand so that they can focus on the lesson more effectively.
Next is, don't gloss over students' questions in order to stick to your lesson plan. This means that don't ignore the students' or children's concerns, suggestions, and questions because we know everything is unpredictable. We can't always stick and assume everything will go as planned. Rather than ignoring your student, you should give correct answers to your students' questions so that they won't be left hanging by not getting the answers they want.
Next is, don't get in over your head with regard to the subject matter. As a future educator, the teacher's mastery of the subject matter or lessons influences the learner's understanding of the subject. Their academic performance and the attainment of their goals mastery of the subject matter by the teacher helps them to impart knowledge effectively and confidently. Confidence is a powerful tool for us teachers because we learn to deal with anxiety. Experience provides us with information and we can use to further hone our skills, and this is observed in the field of education. Failing to plan is planning to fail is the best scope for explaining this matter. A teacher that fails to master a lesson before teaching it will most likely to fail to deliver the information to his or her student. Next is, don't lose sight of what you want student to achieve. It means that a teacher should not forget what the teacher wants the child to achieve. And as a future educator, my main goal is for my student to learn and achieve their future dreams because those achievements meant a lot for teacher they are those person who help us to go this far, and they will be always happy to see you grow and achieve the things you want to achieve. Lastly, don't focus on how well you are doing. Instead, focus on how well your students are learning. This means that as a future educator, the goal of our performance must not focus on pride and satisfaction. Instead, our goal must focus on our student education. For example, instead of focusing on high-quality visual aids in terms of appearance, we should create a high-quality visual aids in terms of content, which is adjusted based on what the students are lacking in order to help them understand the lesson more clearly.